The trained officer screamed in fear as he fired his rifle at that grotesque figure. He decided to empty his weapon on that person. In one day, Nathaniel took down the crime bosses and the best crisis team of the Rio de Janeiro police. The woman carefully knocks on the door. It's hard for her to get this information, and Kim wants to know if it's humanly possible to bend weapons with one's hands. She says the information she has is highly confidential and that it's not a lie. Since this monster is at the hospital, instead of confronting him head-on, it's better to look for a gap. And thanks to her, Kim managed to think of a way to infiltrate the hospital. The woman just hopes he doesn't die soon, but Kim says that his life is privileged. However, he'll need her for that, which leaves her both surprised and scared. In the middle of the city, people are going about their daily lives. A little girl points upwards and asks her father to look as well. Looking up, people wonder if that is Peter. Kim looks too and knows it's nothing. In his hands, there's a flyer asking for donations for elderly people. That's just a small greeting. In celebration of the hospital's 30th anniversary, Peter is going to visit Dr. Nathaniel. As requested, he hacked Glory's server and posted the advertisement that was sent to him. If Glory finds out their lives are in danger, all because of a joke by a 19-year-old boy. Even though it's risky, it's an approach she's never seen before. Even if it's reckless, that old man hasn't failed a single mission in 50 long years. Inside the hospital, a commotion had formed. They don't believe Peter is really alive, and many of them there are D-rank assassins. Even though he's old, they know they can't handle him, but they're just the doormen. The important ones are further inside, Brazilian assassins under Nathaniel himself, likely at least A or B rank. Assassins of that rank who are already difficult to encounter, not to mention Nathaniel himself. It's a privilege for them to witness a fight between disciples. They want to know which one will win. They don't think it will be the old man, who is already 70 years old and has cancer. Before they could continue discussing, someone mentions Peter's name. They want to know why those two are rooting for the man they should be capturing. The truth is that many among them hope the old man doesn't show up. He definitely won't show up, but Kim, who is Peter, is already among them in the hospital. The Brazilian assassin instructs the others not to face Peter. They should use tranquilizers and be cautious. As soon as he's spotted, they should hit the emergency button, and the A-rank assassins will come to support. After giving the instructions, he wants to know if everyone understood, and they respond affirmatively. Observing everything, Kim finds the situation quite interesting. Peter is in the group of people tasked with capturing Peter. Now everyone was supposed to take their positions, and so they did. Kim was going to carry out his task, or rather, Peter was. A declaration of war from the old man is definitely unexpected. The buzz among people grows as they want to know if Glory is doing well and if its new boss is a capable person. One of them started worrying since he began fighting with Peter, and now they can't even find him. It would be unfortunate if he caused a huge mess, and they know how talented the old man is. So it was time for the young man to act. If he's not able to capture the old man, he should speak up so they won't have to take the lead. The tattooed man apologizes to them as he hadn't thought that far ahead, and said that from now on, he'll stick to his competencies, because his hospitality towards the elderly made him forget his place. If he's the chief of staff of the army, he should at least be able to understand that environment. He should be fired from his job. Drowning the old man, he wants to know if he really thinks he's stupid, because he wants to know if his father's best creation is capable of dealing with his own best creation. In human resources, an anonymous person is working quietly, but he quickly realizes that someone is going to end his life. Then his neck is easily broken. Kim is really skilled at what he does, but it was just chiropractic. The man didn't imagine that young doctor was so skillful. Knowing vital points was part of his job. Talking to the patient, he wants to know if he knows a doctor named Nathaniel, but he has never heard of that person. In disguise, he continues walking through the hospital. He needs to find Nathaniel soon, but the person named Nathaniel doesn't exist. It's possible he hid himself after getting rid of his identity. One thing he's sure of, the disciple is somewhere in that hospital. Now it all comes down to speed. Will be found first. Near him, the brothers ask what he's doing. However, he tells them that the one with the injured leg should be sitting in the chair. Asking about Yuna, they say she's not at their level, even though she's a rank above them. But if she sees anything suspicious, she should call them, as the brothers would protect her without hesitation. To which Kim says he'll remember that. Looking down the hallway, the two think they found Peter. Seeing an old man wearing the same shirt, they believe it must be a correct target. Kim tries to tell them that they have the wrong person, but they're already bothering the man. They whisper to him that he shouldn't be there and that they would help him escape. But the old man doesn't understand anything at all. A nurse asks if he needs a syringe. Kim doesn't get it, but she thinks that's the reason they restrained the old man. But Kim says it's fine and that they've already collected his blood. The hunt for Peter is ongoing and they're taking blood from all the patients. The old man does everything he can to escape from the brothers, who swear that he is the real Peter. While they are distracted by him, someone bumps into one of them. Irritated, he called the person out, asking if they were blind. But it's Yuna, to his surprise, as she wasn't supposed to be there. With a face that looks like she's making something up, she says her younger brother is in the hospital. They've never heard that before, and she quickly tries to leave, sparking her curiosity. Watching the scene, Kim wants to know why Yuna is at the hospital. On the earpiece, Ju-won says it's not the time for him to be worrying about students, and Kim realizes that she knows him very well. She wants to know if he already knows how to find Nathaniel, but Kim is still figuring out how to do that. because at the moment, they're both looking for each other. Right now, he wants Nathaniel to expose himself without having to reveal his identity as Kim. In front of him is one of the disciples' assassins. This is Rodrigo, who tells him to do his job properly if he doesn't want to die. Approaching him, he introduces himself to the man. He says he found him. Since he's not showing his face, he wants to set a trap. On the earpiece, the woman thought that was absolute madness. It's time to use it, he says to Juwon, and she should be ready to act. If that's the case, his men are ready to get their hands dirty. Elsewhere, a doctor is preparing for surgery, washing his hands. He performs his ritual calmly. Leaving the bathroom, he opens the door with one of his feet. In a room, Rodrigo seems not to have understood what he heard. He wants to know who that person is who's preparing for surgery. Kim says it's his surgeon, ranked the assassin, Kim Sungu. More hostile, he ordered him to get out and go look for Peter, but Kim said he's not the one he's looking for right now. Looking at the assassin, he asks where the disciple Nathaniel is. Rodrigo wants to know why a piece of trash like him would want to know that, and Kim says there's only one reason an assassin asks about someone. When they do, it's because they want to kill that person. Rodrigo was already bored and is quite pleased to have someone to try to kill. Running through the corridors, a man says he has something to tell the professor. He wants to know what it is, and the man says he should take a look at those documents. They are recordings from one of the operating rooms. The professor watches the footage carefully. As it progresses, a slight smile appears on his face. Rodrigo is having difficulty dealing with that doctor. The action is too fast, but he manages to notice everything. Kim had quickly gained the upper hand in the fight. Soon it turned into a one-sided beating session. Rodrigo was being hit from all sides. It didn't take long for him to be completely neutralized. In fact, everything happened and ended in just 10 seconds. At the end of the confrontation, Rodrigo is lying on the ground, motionless. That was all the time needed for a rank B assassin to be killed by him. As if that wasn't enough, he looks at the room's security camera. Nathaniel didn't expect to see that. Peter was really there in that hospital. No more doubts. He wants to know where he is now, and they are waiting for a response from the security team. Moreover, the hospital's video files are being deleted in real time, and they aren't able to stop the attack. Faced with the bad news, he asks the professor to spare him. However, he's excited that Peter is indeed in his hospital. So excited that he can hardly wait. Grayson, Sawyer, Carter, Robert, these are bodies inside the tubes. They were all waiting for Peter's arrival. The VIP chair has been prepared, and he hopes his guest enjoys the experience, because he wants to put his body in one of those tubes as soon as possible. They certainly took the bait. The expression and the wrinkles were all perfectly identical. She's sure of her work was very good. With that, Kim believes that Nathaniel will reveal himself now. She really wanted to know what he looks like, but wants to know what Kim will do. Now that the bait has been set, it's up to him to sit and wait for his victim. And that's exactly what he'll do now. On the rooftop, Yuna is having her meal, unaware of what just happened. The one they call Professor is the disciple Nathaniel, and he seems to want to meet with Yuna. Feeling anxious, it's impossible that he found out about what happened between them. It would be better if she didn't go to meet him, or she might put everyone at risk, especially Kim, and she doesn't want to do that, so someone calls her. As soon as Kim touches the girl's shoulders, she screams in fear, and he asks her if she saw a ghost. Yuna says she was about to leave, but Kim holds her back and tells her to stay there. She wants to know what's wrong. He says he's Kim, and D-rank assassin, and that he came to eat, but she wants him to eat somewhere else. However, accidentally, she ended up ordering food for 2 people. Yuna knew that the minimum order there was 2 chickens. Kim wants to spend some time with her since he arrived too early to meet someone. Yuna wants to know who. All she can think is that if she's found talking to him there, she'll put everyone in danger. She says she won't talk to him and wants him to leave, but she takes all the chicken he brought. Trying to find a middle ground, she says she'll leave after eating 1 piece, and Kim tells her to do as she wishes. However, she ends up eating all the chicken pieces, and Kim says she's too shameless. Yuna wants to know who he's waiting for, but Kim says if he tells her, she'll be in danger. The girl insists and wants to know the reason that brought him to that hospital. She knows it's hard for him to trust her because of the way they ended up meeting. She knows that he and that old man are connected. Even if they can't find him, she's going to say something she's sure of. Then she remembered the past and felt the urge to apologize to Kim. That old man was seriously injured, and that only happened because he tried to save her. Peter is probably already dead. Kim interrupts and says he's looking for someone. Yuna asks once more who that person is. He didn't want to involve her in this, but she must have definitely seen him in the hospital before, the disciple Nathaniel. Showing her a photo, he asks if it's familiar to her. He knows she knows him as she was called there separately from the other assassins. Calling him an idiot, she says that the person in the photo is not Nathaniel. Before she could say more about the real one, someone approached the 2 of them. She wasn't supposed to walk around there without an escort, as that man was wandering through the hospital. Looking at the girl, he said she should remain in the infirmary. Yuna began trembling just by looking at that man. This is the moment Kim had been waiting for. Nathaniel had revealed himself. However, he still doesn't know Kim's true identity. Looking at her, he waits for Yuna's response. He'd already warned her about this, but looking at the table, he wants to know who's accompanying her. Kim looks at him without any fear. He stands up from the table to introduce himself, and Yuna is hesitant about them interacting in any way. because she's sure they might end up fighting, but Kim bowed and greeted the professor. He said he is a D-rank assassin assigned to that mission. His name is Kim, and he's honored to meet a disciple in person. He promised to deliver Peter's head to him, and continued his pleasant performance. In response, the disciple showed no sign of emotion. Before leaving, he ordered Yuna to go to his room and said he would send someone to escort her, and that he would definitely see her later. Having had contact with that man for the first time, she is now certain that Nathaniel is not an ordinary man. A nurse stops Nathaniel to talk about the person who captured Park Sang-do. But according to the instructor, the students were just lucky, and you shouldn't worry about it. But the professor says he's the one who decides that and wants to know where his report is. It was already printed there, so he extended his hand to take it. The guy next to him got nervous and let the papers fall to the ground. In response, he began to apologize profusely, saying the papers slipped from his hands. His luck is that Nathaniel can't stop thinking about Kim, who introduced himself to him. Ever since that handshake, his hand is still trembling. Then he asked what his name was, and the guy said that if it's the young ones from before, they're Yuna and Kim. Kim Sung-gu, he immediately remembered, wanting to keep an eye on him, but he believes the young man will be a good sample. On the radio, she doesn't believe Nathaniel's men are going to escort Yuna. He must be focused on Peter now, and even so, he accepted his offer to be one of his bodyguards. It's going to be fun because he's not going to find Peter. The woman is very upset with the risks that Kim is taking. She warned him to get out of there quickly, as the danger he's facing is only increasing. As soon as he goes, he'll find out what kind of place this is. Before leaving, he congratulated the kid on his victory in chess, and the other brat says the doctor went easy on him. The man gave him a card that grants free access to any part of the hospital. He usually doesn't make this type of offer to rank D individuals, but he must remember 3 things. Only speak if spoken to, don't get suspicious about anything he does, and the most important of all, never refuse his favor. But Kim doesn't know what that means. Also, he wants to know why the man is so nervous while explaining. Now they should hurry as Nathaniel hates being kept waiting. As the professor requested, Kim is there now. He's happy that he didn't arrive late, but Kim senses that the scene is off. The rounds are about to begin now, and Kim knows this won't be easy at all. These assassins are different from the others, because their loyalty doesn't lie with glory. They're Nathaniel's team, his personal assassins. Asking about Peter, one of the goons says measures have been taken as he requested. All exits are sealed under the excuse of a small quarantine. They're gradually narrowing down the area, and he wants to know about the DNA tests. The examination for people around his age will take 2 days. It's not possible that he's left the hospital yet. Even if he's skilled, there's no way to cheat DNA tests. Now he's trapped like a rat. It's only a matter of time before he's found, and Kim is very happy to hear their plans. Even so, he knows that Nathaniel isn't the type of person to make things easy. Walking through the hospital, he starts talking to some patients. He tells a boy that he needs to do this if he wants to play soccer again. Talking to nurses, he discusses matters related to the surgeries that happen on that floor. He knows he was summoned with a purpose, but he doesn't know why he's doing his rounds anyway. Then Nathaniel asks if he's disappointed because he didn't call him to do anything specific other than be his bodyguard. However, he thinks it's because he's not showing his nature as a disciple, but Kim says it's fine. Seeing the boredom on his face, he asked him to follow as there's something he wants to show him. That path isn't marked on the hospital's floor plan, so he has no idea what might be at the end of this route. They're just descending the stairs in silence, and he wants to know what Nathaniel is going to show him. Then the professor swipes his card through a digital reader. Finally, Kim comes face to face with what he was hiding. It's too horrific, and Nathaniel said that this is where his ideal world becomes a reality. He asked if Kim is interested in biology, to which he replied that he only knows the basics. He simply stated that organisms evolve through natural selection, and that it's sometimes a great coincidence. However, Darwin is wrong according to him. Evolution is caused by nothing but him. There at the hospital, he could eliminate the weak, as well as preserve the strong and develop them even further. This is a more honest way to care for people, which is why he's been keeping an eye on Kim. While they were talking, a loud beep echoed and a code red was initiated. A specimen had escaped, and they should take shelter until the security team contained it. The man runs desperately while the alarm warns everyone of the imminent danger. Given the circumstances, it would be impossible to stop it with just tranquilizers. The guards know they need to stop it and prevent it from escaping that place, but it's very skilled and passed through them without any difficulty. It's almost at the exit, and the gates will remain closed until the specimen is captured. It knows it needs to reach the gate before it closes, or it won't be able to escape. The countdown is almost over, and its dream of escape is slipping away. Suddenly, debris flies from the wall towards its face. It was the professor, who had smashed through the wall with one hand and grabbed the specimen. This interruption left him annoyed, as he was talking about something very important. Crushing the specimen's head, he said it shouldn't have interrupted him. Only screams can be heard from the other side of the wall. As soon as silence fills the space, it's clear that the situation has been resolved. Looking at Kim, he apologizes for what happened and says he will now continue from where he left off. He removes his blood-stained hand from the wall and says he likes strong people. That's why he dissects these bodies himself with his own hands, because there is someone he wants to surpass. Looking at Kim, he said he saw great potential in him. Having all that strength at a young age is rare, and through him, he wants to see the result of his evolution. He asked if Kim wasn't curious to see how strong he could become and asked him to accept his grace. He said that Kim could become an A rank, and with his potential, he could be as strong as a disciple. Kim knew he was abnormally strong. Breaking the wall with his hand was surreal, said the woman on the earpiece, but there was something even more surprising. He felt Kim's presence through the wall and grabbed him by the head, crushing his skull. She wants Kim to get out of there immediately, but he says he can't stop now. After all, he has even more questions now, especially about the source of that absurd power. She says the blood samples are being analyzed and his time is running out, but there's still a way, and she wants to know what it is. She suggests swapping the results. He just needs to break into his office, because she has received a card that grants unrestricted access to the hospital. She says he's completely crazy and could get caught, but that won't happen, says Kim, because he has all the time he needs to do this. While following Nathaniel during his rounds, he carefully analyzed the route he takes. This way, he has an estimate of the time spent on this process. At the moment, he has 4.5 minutes to do his job. He just needs to swap the results within that short time frame. Without hesitation, he began working in the room. Outside, Nathaniel talks to his patients. Following his route, he also interacts with one of the nurses. On his way out, he speaks with another nurse who provides more data. He learned from his henchman that the blood test results should already be in his office. However, until now, not a single sample was compatible with Peter's. The blood analysis of the elderly patients, none were compatible. The henchman thinks Peter might be hiding in the ceiling duct. Thinking of the possibilities, he wants to use his imagination to consider what could be possible. One of his conjectures is whether Peter no longer has the same appearance as before. Nathaniel wants to know how a mere D rank is in a disciple's room, especially in his master's absence. For the past 2 days, he did his rounds at the same time. He was supposed to have 2.5 minutes of available time left. Nathaniel wants an explanation for what he found, and Kim wants to know why he appeared there already, unless he did all of this on purpose, and perhaps offered his grace to him, and showed all of his secrets in the hospital's basement, just to make Kim believe his plan was working. That way, he was underestimating him from the beginning, and Nathaniel asks the boy to give him an answer. There's not much that can be said, but he concentrates to think of something. Then he extended a folder to him, saying he was going there to deliver it to him. Nathaniel wants to know what it is, but he said Dr. Hong ordered it to be delivered and didn't provide further details. With that, he said he was leaving, but Nathaniel asked him to wait and grabbed him by the shoulder. He wants to know how Kim doesn't know what it is, since the document appears to have been opened. Thus, Nathaniel asks if he is curious about the blood samples of the elderly. If that's the case, he wants to know what made him so interested in them, since he doesn't even know what they are. He wants to know what Kim was looking for in his room since he sneaked in. If he has no answer, there's only one conclusion to be made, but Kim interrupts the professor. A person can modulate facial expressions, but there's one thing that can't be masked. And that thing is DNA, and since they haven't caught Peter yet, he thought that the old man might not look the way they imagine. So he compared it with patients who underwent plastic surgery or changed their gender, but none were compatible either. Besides that, he wanted to take another look. Then he intensified his performance and apologized to the professor, as he shouldn't have done it without informing him. After hearing the explanation, Nathaniel asked him to raise his head and place one of his fingers on Kim's forehead. Indeed, he has something in his mind, but he shouldn't forget that he is a member of Glory and should maintain his dignity. He is now free to leave. Thanking, he said he would leave now. Touching Kim's face, he realized that this skin is real. It's not makeup. The texture is that of a young person's skin, so he ended up dismissing Kim as Peter's possible identity. Having returned to square one, he became deeply irritated. All Nathaniel wants to know now is where Peter is hiding. This is Carter Podman, the champion of Mexico's underground and no-rules fights. His nickname is Slasher, and it's said he has the strongest legs on the planet. Many have succumbed to his powerful kicks. Nathaniel wants to know if what he heard about him is true, and the fighter asks if the Asian guy came there to die. The world's strongest legs couldn't withstand a single blow from the disciple, who now flaunted them like a trophy in the middle of the arena. In the same way, he encountered the world's strongest fist, whose arm shattered into pieces after being struck by him. There was also the world's strongest gang, and they had their heads mounted on the ceiling like chandeliers. Nathaniel's pursuit of the strongest made him defeat them all. Not even he knows exactly why he did this, and in agony, the young man tells the Asian that he will not be the best. At first, he didn't understand what he heard. As long as Peter is alive, he is not the best of all. Nathaniel is already tired and sick of having to hear that name. All they wanted was to know who this Peter is and what he needs to do to find him. It's unfortunate that the body before him can no longer say anything. Nathaniel is furious, as it seems he is the only person who cannot meet Peter. To be the strongest man, he needs to find him, and the last person who saw him must know how to locate him. Calling one of his henchmen, he told him to bring that person to his office. The brothers want to know what Yuna is doing there. She has her reasons, and told them to pretend better that they are patients in the hospital. They saw her in Nathaniel's office and want to know if she has a secret mission, but they don't suspect anything. While they are talking, the man calls her by name. He said that the professor wants to see her immediately. She asked why, but the young man told Yuna not to ask questions. That left the brothers impressed, as he is an A-rank assassin, the Undertaker Santos. After the interaction ended, Yuna goes to the professor's office. Inside, he presents a photo of Peter to her. It must have been her first time seeing him. Not even other disciples had this privilege, and besides, she left there alive. She even thought that Peter let her escape, but she also managed to escape from an A-rank assassin, and there's nothing special about her. Yuna just thinks that maybe he has no proof, and she just needs to stay quiet. Nathaniel asked if the girl had witnessed a miracle. Certainly not, and some disciples propose a hypothesis about what might have happened. He must have helped her during the incident with Park Sang-do, and in return for that, she must have made a deal with Peter. But she's an orphan and has nothing to offer him. Given that, he wants to know if Yuna is a double agent working for him. Yuna wants to know why there is all this suspicion, but Nathaniel says it doesn't matter because she can't do anything. Because he knows she can't just die and leave her brother behind. Due to his hemophilia, he has been bedridden for a long time. With his health condition, living 3 more years is practically impossible, however. Nathaniel says he can save her brother. With the serum he developed, which costs $4.5 billion, with 1 dose the disease is eradicated, and he hopes she understands as she is smart. She needs to choose his side, and Yuna wants to know what she has to do. Nathaniel said that Peter told him he would come to meet him. On August 24th, no matter what he asks, she is to reveal everything. But that must be done on the 24th at 2 p.m. in the hospital lobby. She will be the bait. She will never have the money to pay for the serum, and he wants Peter, a situation where both win. First, he will give her a place to stay in the hospital with his diagnosis, but she didn't understand this second part. Immediately, her eyes widened at what happened. He had broken her arm effortlessly. That made Yuna writhe in pain, and the professor said that healthy people cannot be admitted to his hospital, and he pressed the injury with one of his feet. Not to mention that if she refuses his offer, another person will end up with the same diagnosis as hers. Leaving her on the ground, he said he would see her again during his rounds. With a broken arm, she was now placed in a room of the hospital. If he discovers that the person helping her is Kim, they will all end up dead. But there's a chance she can save her brother. She just doesn't know what choice to make. Outside, someone asks about the patient in room 604, and Yuna responds. Her eyes couldn't believe who had arrived. It was Kim, saying it was time to get her injection. Yuna says he shouldn't be there, but the National Singing Championship is on, and she insists he should watch it somewhere else. She scratches her head, unsure how to explain things to him. Yuna tries everything to take control and push him away, and Kim asks if this is all because of Nathaniel. After all, he's her professor. Even so, he doesn't remember breaking his apprentice's arm. Now he wants her to tell him who did it. Yuna is a bit hesitant, so she's thinking about what she can say to him, and she asks what he'll do on the 24th. Wanting to know the reason for the specific question, she says she has something to ask him, but can't tell him now. On that day at 2 p.m., he should be in the hospital lobby. He should stop asking questions and just do it as she says. For Yuna, it's the only choice she has. As he looks at her, he insists once more that he needs to go. So he said he would be there at the appointed time. Outside the hospital, the rain pours heavily. On Yuna's phone screen, tears fall on her brother's picture. She still doesn't know if she did the right thing. Outside, Kim hears that this is the only thing she can do. The hospital's birthday banner is still outside. The 24th has arrived, and the professor says he's been looking forward to this day, because Peter said he would meet him on this very day, and he can't wait to finally see him. With an earpiece, he tells Yuna what she must do. After all, he wants to know where Peter is. Thinking for a moment, he says he's probably on his way to meet her in the lobby. The clock is almost marking the time agreed upon between them. The minutes are passing slowly. Finally, it's 2 p.m. sharp. The girl is saddened by what may happen because of her decision. Meanwhile, Nathaniel waits attentively for Peter's arrival. Kim walks through the hospital corridors on his way to Yuna. The boy asks if her brother has a boyfriend. He said he saw some guys in her profile picture and thought one might be her boyfriend, but she said they're just friends, which surprised him even more. The guy in the middle is really handsome, and he even liked to play soccer with him. And in 3 years, he wishes he could watch the World Cup and cheer for Korea with him. That would be his first trip abroad to the other side of the sea. All these are just the delusions of a bedridden young man. Dreaming like that is the only good thing left in his life. With his eyes closed, he continues to dream about their trip to the World Cup. She told him that the new medicine could cure his condition, and he only needs a single dose. It was the brief conversation she had with him while feeling the pain of her broken arm. Thinking about her brother's state, she can only imagine that there was no other way out for her. In the earpiece, Nathaniel wants to know where Peter is. He must be on his way, and Kim is also at the hospital. She's waiting for him to fulfill the promise he made to her. It's already 2 p.m., and she waits for him in the hospital lobby. The moment Nathaniel has been eagerly waiting for. However, a few minutes go by and there's no sign of him. The professor's mood is no longer as friendly. He wants to know from Yuna what happened, because Peter hasn't shown up at the designated place. Meanwhile, she wonders if Kim really won't keep his promise to her, because it's already past 2 p.m. But he's at the clock outside, not the one in the lobby. The old man got the meeting place wrong. In their conversation, he asked if it was the lobby clock, but she said no. He should go to the clock outside in the garden. If he went to the other one, she would kill Kim, who ended up agreeing. And there he is, looking at the clock's hands, waiting for his friend. Nathaniel might end up killing Kim if he discovers that it was him and not Peter who killed Octopus. The professor's henchmen are all over the place in that building. No matter how skilled Kim is, the situation is completely dangerous. Any precaution in that environment is still too little compared to the risk. The only thing she wants now is for Kim to escape from that trap. He had appeared mysteriously in her life. She doesn't know where he came from. And because of that, she became suspicious of the young man's intentions. But with him, she discovered how nice it is to share a meal with someone. In his company, she ended up experiencing many new things, and they shared many good moments together. Besides, she learned to trust him in times of need. And that wasn't all about them. Kim cared about Yuna up to that point, and he was the first person to sincerely think about it, about what she is good at doing. Because of that, there's no way she could betray him like this. Definitely, she couldn't betray someone as important as he is. With Peter's delay, there isn't much time left for her. Using the earpiece, Nathaniel asked what happened. Trembling with fear, she began to explain. She said that she had lied as she never saw Peter again after that day and was tempted by the offer of the medicine he made to her. But she knows that if the old man knew she was there, he would have come. Without knowing what to say about the situation, she asked the professor to ask for anything she can do, and she'll do her best. Crying, she only asks that he doesn't do anything to her brother. In the face of that emotional confession, he said his first words. She can bring Peter there, it's unfortunate, but there's nothing they can do. Now she has to die, unfortunately. If she can't bring him there, she's useless, and he had already warned her about who would be next. As the henchmen approach her, the fire alarm rings throughout the hospital. The alarm called for the evacuation of everyone from the building. Even the assassin brothers flee the place, forgetting their mission. During the escape, one of them notices something. The exits began to close. The doors are blocked on all sides. There's not a single emergency exit that isn't sealed. Everyone who hasn't left the hospital yet won't be able to get out. The brothers can't understand how that happened, even with the fire alarm. In the hospital lobby, Nathaniel is with several of his henchmen. In response to the alarm, he doubts that a fire really happened, because he doesn't smell anything burning, so he orders one of his henchmen to investigate the situation. Even for Yuna, the fire alarm is completely unexpected. Near her, someone asks why she is crying. His steps approach her slowly. It's Kim who's there, and there's no reason to cry now. Yuna doesn't know why he is still there, but Kim said he had promised her that they would meet at the clock. During a fire, sane people try to run to a safe place. So if none of them have fled yet, it means that none of those people are doctors or patients. In fact, the man in the lab coat is an assassin. Another patient has a baseball bat in the middle of the hospital, as well as another pair carrying melee weapons. Now he has a message for the assassins who are there for him. Yuna doesn't know what Kim is doing now. Nathaniel still doesn't understand what he meant and asks if his intention is to save Yuna. If that's the case, he had already suspected it. It wasn't just sympathy that he showed. That handshake wasn't from a normal person. Nathaniel suspected that something was going on. Because of that, he wants to know if he is capable of dealing with all those assassins. They all come from a violent community in Brazil. The life expectancy of the youth there is 16 years, and thanks to all that violence, very cruel people are able to develop. Most young people die before they even reach 10 years old. Because of the unstoppable flow of bodies, the community received the name of the city of funerals. In that harsh reality, the weak die, and to survive, you have to be strong. Through the various kidnappings that occur in the city, the unstoppable drug trafficking, even prostitution, the funeral agents control the city. They are the most powerful and violent organization in all of Brazil. For him to know the 100 strongest members of that organization are in the hospital now, Nathaniel is curious to see how he's going to deal with 100 people at the same time. Witnessing the impossible scene makes him smile, and as he had said before, he saw potential in him. He's like a tiger cub. If he grows under his guidance, he will become the greatest of predators. However, he cannot win against adults right now. It was time for him to join the professor, who would secure his future as an assassin. But Kim isn't impressed by the offer at all. Thinking for a bit, he even shrugs at it. Nathaniel realizes that he has made a choice. Moreover, he seems to desire the imminent fight. Two degenerates charge at the protagonist of the story. The bald one can't wait to let his blade sing. Finally, after a long time, gratuitous violence emerges and Kim took down the two extras. Those who were still alive can hardly believe what they had witnessed. Even Yuna couldn't believe it. He killed his opponents without looking at them, without missing a single vital point. Handling the pen, he asked the professor a question. After that, does he still see him as a tiger cub? Nathaniel asks if they know how long it takes for a person to die. 1 minute if it's a major vein and only 12 seconds if the carotid artery is damaged. With 100 people and taking 1 minute for each of them. The truth is, Nathaniel is very curious to see what will happen, because he wants to know if it will really last 100 minutes. The Brazilians say that Korea is a terrible country, too peaceful. No legal betting, no football, no Paraguayan cigarettes, a joke. And that he felt alive in the community, exchanging gunfire with Germans and already missed some good old violence. but there was no time for nostalgia as he was killed before he could feel it. The second one was already on a one-way trip to find out if God exists. They try to intimidate the boy, saying they'll put him in the microwave. Yuna mistakenly thinks Kim is in trouble, because now he's cornered in a dead-end hallway. Kim realizes that even with some punks dead, the rest don't care. They laugh and say that growing up in the community made them tough. Every day, another punk ended up in a grave. Someone who grew up in South Korea would never understand what 20 minutes in Rio de Janeiro during rush hour are like, especially when Flamengo is losing at home. Still outnumbered, he skillfully evades his aggressors, but they know he can't dodge forever. Once again, he's trapped and without a way out. Nathaniel wants to know what he will do in this situation, because there are dozens of guys from Rio blocking his exit, ready to collect on him. Indeed, there are many Brazilians and he doesn't know what to do. If it were a soccer ball, it would have already perished. However, staying in that position was exactly what he wanted. In the cabinet behind him, there seems to be a record. The guys from Rio start to watch curiously, waiting to see what he's doing. Him and pull out a fire hose from there. The guy from Rio can't believe he's going to lose his life to a water jet. This is unacceptable. While he was thinking, the water started to sweep the punks down the hallway. Kim tells them they shouldn't be surprised yet because they're just getting started. The mass of Brazilians is pushed through the hospital. Now with a little more space, Kim looks at something. His hose has run out of water. It's been depleted. It seems their water play ended sooner than expected. The Brazilians praise his cleverness but say you can't kill anyone like that. But once again, he tells them they're just getting started with this game. Now in his hands, there is a defibrillator. Placing both paddles on the wet floor, he said that this is the true beginning. Immediately, all the Brazilians nearby received a formidable shock. Kim was standing on a dry platform, and in front of him, there were now a few more bodies. Nathaniel is quite impressed with the boy's performance and can't wait to see more of it. The more he looks at him, the more captivated he is by his foolishness. Nathaniel corrects himself and says that if their numbers drop by half, Kim won't spend more than an hour playing. But he doesn't think it will take him that long to get through them. Even so, he thanked him for the generosity. Picking up a notebook from the ground, he began to write a few things. Throwing it to the floor, he startled the Brazilians who were still alive. He made a mark on what would be the drawing's neck. He said that it represented the excessive bleeding caused by a carotid injury. That's going to be the cause of death for all those guys from Rio. The first of them even saw it, but couldn't react in time. That scrawny Korean is not someone they can deal with. He simply turned into a killing machine more efficient than Rio de Janeiro itself. There wasn't a single exposed neck that could escape the reach of his little pen. They were snails and Kim is the salt. It doesn't matter if they were tough guys in their community, this is Korea and the pen is mightier than the rifle. His skill is simply transcendent. The further he advances, the greater the number of bodies and dying people on the ground. Passing through them didn't even require everything he's capable of. The discreet pen is much more dangerous than any knife in the place. There are more bodies than living people now, but the small portion of the remaining Cariocas decides to fight back. They leap and form a large human mass over Kim. However, they are all repelled by the power of the assassin. Yuna is still there and doesn't take her eyes off the fight for a single moment. That must be the legend of the strongest man on Earth. Near her, people couldn't stop talking about him. Contrary to what the legend said, this man was an ordinary old man like any other. She never imagined he would be able to fight all those people and come out victorious. When that happened, it dawned on her. She shouldn't believe in rumors. But what if the rumors were true? In front of her is Kim, who is Peter, doing something unbelievable. He's handling all those assassins alone without difficulty. And to do so, he's using only his pen. Now everything on the ground is just blood. Nathaniel, who watched everything, is definitely pleased. He doesn't know if he's a fan or a hater, but he expected Kim to be capable of doing that. Besides, the entire action began and ended in just 13 minutes. Kim says he's not done yet, and the professor didn't understand. He's still alive, and it's up to him to choose if Kim will go up, or if he will come down and throw punches with him. Like a JoJo villain, he descends to the ground floor, crushing the floor beneath his feet. Now that he's on the ground, he asked Kim if that answered his question. Since they're going to fight, there's something that makes the professor very curious. He wants to know how he is so skilled despite being so young. It doesn't make any sense to him. He even imagined that he could be from another country, but he's too young for that. But Kim is also curious about the disciple. He wants to know why those who lack confidence tend to talk a lot. Smiling at the provocation, he said the young man should know something as well. Arrogance and fighting spirit are completely different things. The attack comes with force and Kim puts his arms in front of him to block it. The impact is strong enough to lift him off the ground. Indeed, he is really very strong. Even the girl didn't expect the professor to be someone truly so powerful. Kim falls to the ground but manages to maintain his stance. He looks at his opponent, focused. All that superhuman strength, he doesn't seem real. Yuna knows that things are much more dangerous now. Nathaniel imagines that Kim used all his strength fighting the 100 assassins who were there. It's only a matter of time before he loses. Yuna says that blocking all those attacks is very dangerous and he should dodge soon. Nathaniel asks if he's already tired since they've only just begun and armed himself with the bodies of his henchmen. That is definitely unexpected and caught Kim's attention. Even though he blocked it, he was struck by two massive karaoke bodies. Nathaniel says he can't do anything because he's exhausted, but he won't accept that as an excuse to go easy on him. He threw Kim against the wall using just one of his hands. More impressive than his strength is only Kim's physical resilience. He had never seen someone so strong before, and he would like to know what the source of all that strength is. While standing still and reflecting, Nathaniel landed a flying knee strike. Yuna is already in tears because she's sure Kim will die at this rate. Going to the elevator, she saw that it had gone down. Since he is very quick, Nathaniel thought for a moment. In a confined space, there's no way the young man can escape him. Kim says nothing in response to the provocation. Meanwhile, the disciple is engaged in trying to finish him off as soon as possible. Striking his face several times, he asks if he's really going to stay like that, doing nothing. He wants to know where his fighting spirit is, as he swore it would be a challenge. But from what it seems, he is no different from ordinary people. The blows are so strong that the elevator is being destroyed from the outside. Its walls are already completely dented. There's so much violence in the strikes that even the steel cables are breaking. The two had to leave there. Otherwise, it would have become their coffin. Thus, the elevator hit the ground, finishing destroying itself. It doesn't take long for the dust to start rising in the place. On the ground lies the elevator door, marked by the disciples' blows. Yuna screams from above, worried, but she needs to find a way to get down quickly. There are many things that pique Nathaniel's curiosity. He was supposed to have found Peter, but it was Kim who showed up, and he wants to know what the connection between them is. Could that boy be something else? Like just an inanimate body now because he's no longer alive. That's what always happens to his opponents. Everyone who fights him ends up dead because he is always sincere in his battles. But the more he thinks about these results, the more frustrated he becomes. Looking closer at Kim's body, he notices that there are no wounds on his face. That's a good sign for him. The chaos hasn't ended yet. Earlier, he had put a lot of violence into that flying knee strike. Not just in that one, but in every single blow he threw. And he has been blocking attacks from the beginning, or simply dodging them. Kim stands up and apologizes for his rudeness, because he had taken a small nap just now as he found it all too boring. That simple provocation made Nathaniel lose his composure. Now the violence was about to start. He said something about being sincere earlier. If that's the case, it's fine. He should come at him because Kim is going to return a little sincerity as well. Nathaniel charges at him like a husband who just found out he's been cheated on. Now is the moment when things will be settled. Then Kim countered the disciple's punch with a punch of his own. The scene ended up being recorded by the cameras. His team sees the recording and worries about him, thinking Kim is being pressured. But the woman isn't worried and says she heard an interesting story some time ago. About 55 years ago, someone asked the children what the source of strength is. Many answers were given by them. Indeed, they were good answers among those she heard. Now she wanted them to try to break that huge boulder in front of them. They had gone through the toughest week and should be able to handle something simple. One of them thinks the task is impossible. One of the kids says that Peter won't be able to break it and that the bandages won't help at all. Even so, he hit the boulder and the snotty kid said he would never break that stone. Time passed and he continued striking the stone. At night, he was still there hitting the stone. In the first minutes of dawn, someone went up to him. It had been a month since he showed up to train with them, and they imagine he must have given up. Not to mention, the stone remains intact, and they don't understand why Peter is still being favored. The girl tells them to look to the side. They knew that wasn't there before, it's a different boulder. There are several broken stones, and they wonder if Peter was the one who did all of that. In the present, the powerful fists collided. Nathaniel asks if he knows the maximum force a person can exert. In a deadlift, a record-breaking strongman can pull over 500 kilos from the ground. That guy is no challenge for him. Because of that, he wants to know what Kim does, as he's many times stronger than a normal human and doesn't even seem to be using any enhancement. Kim asks if he's ever been hit by a car before, and Nathaniel says that's very specific. Then he said his punch would hurt much more than being run over. With the impact's force, the disciple flies like a ragdoll, destroying the wall. Even so, Kim wasn't satisfied with just that, and started returning every punch he had to dodge. Nathaniel doesn't even know what hit him. At this moment, he's getting beaten by Kim as if he owed him money. It's all open hand slaps, so as not to leave marks on the guy's face. Whether open or closed, the beating session seems to have no end. Kim is standing calmly, waiting for the professor's reaction. The old man thinks Kim has won because a head that gets smashed into the wall like that doesn't come out intact. But his joy quickly disappears. Even Kim is a little surprised that he's still alive, and says that Nathaniel won't understand why he's still breathing, while the hands he used to hit him are already marked with wounds. He said he had already told him about who controls evolution. Now he will be the first not just to hear what he says, but the first to witness the father showing off his form. Throwing his clothes on the floor, he reveals his body. Kim looks at all of that and wonders what he had done to his own body. He wasn't supposed to be shocked. This is Nathaniel's legacy for evolution. He took the concept of being ripped very seriously. That was truly a stunning and horrifying body. He didn't have nipples. Nathaniel says he is the epitome of anti-fragile. If he isn't killed, the pain he feels only makes him stronger. His muscles get even stronger when they are damaged, and he created a drug that significantly reduces anabolic recovery time. The more he gets beaten, the stronger his body becomes in case it wasn't clear. Because of this, the probability of him losing this fight is 0. Kim knows he must not get caught. He thought this as he was getting caught. Enraged, Nathaniel prepares to slam that skinny body into the ground. The force of the impact simply made the floor shatter. A devastating blow, the dust from the debris rises like a mist. Until now, no one who received that grip on their neck lived to tell the tale. Because of this, he should congratulate Kim for managing to escape, but he knows it's impossible. He is certain he grabbed his neck. There's no way in a tenth of a second he could have reacted. But he managed to place his hands inside the grip, creating just enough space to escape. In such a short time, he made all those decisions and acted in perfect harmony. His reflexes are not human. However, Kim knows he narrowly escaped death. If he had been held for just 1 full second, he would have died. Not to mention that his hands hurt as if they had been pierced by nails. He had broken the wall with one of his hands, as if it were absolutely nothing. He crushed the skull of a grown man like someone crushing a fruit. The certainty he has is that if those hands grab him again, there's no way he'll get out alive. Nathaniel says he saw Kim's medical data, and judging by that, he should be stronger than most A-rank assassins. Even so, he wouldn't be able to beat him because he's always evolving. However, if he begged like a dog, maybe he'd change his mind. The truth is that he can't wait to make Kim embrace the juice and become even more incredible. That possibility had been discarded a long time ago. But seeing the boy raise his hand, Nathaniel thinks he's agreeing. Through the cameras, the old man thinks Kim is surrendering, and this could get them discovered. Nathaniel knows he has potential and is willing to forget everything. That way he can satisfy his desire to become even stronger. Looking at the boy, he wants to know what he is doing. For rude kids, discipline is the best response. And that's what Kim intends to give him. It's so much arrogance per minute that he might just win the fight by driving Nathaniel insane. The lunatic charges forward, breaking the ground beneath his feet. Kim doesn't lag behind and also moves. The fight between them is fast and violent, taking the entire place as the arena. More technical and faster, Kim manages to land several clean hits. Practically every blow he throws hits its target. Unfortunately, the muscular wall in front of him doesn't seem to suffer any damage. Through the cameras, his team can't tell what's happening, only that violence is being unleashed. In fact, it doesn't seem like a fight between two humans. Nathaniel looks at the boy and acknowledges his strength, completely different from all the people he had fought until now. However, the undeniable truth is that even during the fight, he keeps evolving. The sensation is so good that it's the first time he really takes pleasure in fighting. This makes him think about how strong he could become or how tough his muscles could get. Thinking about all these things, he keeps fighting. But there is a question lingering in his mind: Kim's strength. There must be something else that explains it. His medical data must be hiding something. Nathaniel would like to know what he's holding on to that allows him to keep fighting. Because after all this time, he still hasn't given up. For this, there's certainly only one possible answer. Tired of getting hit, he grabs the boy's leg and says he has made his decision. Even if he cries like a dog, he will be dissected like a frog, from the smallest bones to the most useless cells. He promised that he would be thoroughly examined. It's unfortunate that the last thing he will see will be his fist coming toward his face. His team watches through the cameras, desperate. They scream, not knowing if he's still alive. But it was he himself who said that he gets stronger when he takes hits, and that he reduced his muscle recovery time. So all he had to do was wait, and he did so for a long time. Now Nathaniel is surprised. Kim waited until he became as strong as possible, so that his muscles would become so powerful that they would press against every nerve and bone in his body, eventually rendering him useless, and indeed, Nathaniel can't move. He was so focused on the fight that he didn't notice his entire body getting increasingly stiff. That boy had noticed the flaw in his body within just a few minutes, something that even he, the disciple Nathaniel, couldn't detect. With the battle practically won, Kim smiles. Then he says out loud that Nathaniel had asked for this, which makes him seethe with rage. It can't be happening. It must be a nightmare. He had killed countless people just to obtain that power, not to mention all the pain he had to endure to achieve it. All those modifications to become the perfect human being. Even so, that damn boy would be his executioner and would put an end to all his progress. Smiling malevolently, he says he didn't expect to have to use that. With the little mobility he had left, he pulled a rainbow-colored pin from his sandal. That drug deteriorates his muscles, but makes him the perfect organism. It's only fair that Kim witnesses this. After 3 minutes, Nathaniel won't be in the land of the living anymore. Knowing this, he'll make sure that Kim isn't either. His body began to move again, and blood spilled profusely from his mouth. His steps were so powerful that the ground couldn't withstand the force. Kim prepares to counter that charge. The apostle, if he wasn't human before, had now turned into a monster. His life would burn as fuel. This is the epitome of all his research and achievements. Even so, the fight continues. All of his moves are being read. Fighting against just one person, he still manages to be struck. The sensation is like fighting against 1,000, and battling with Kim awakened a new feeling. Kim is definitely not a D rank. He has an extraordinary amount of experience that someone like him could never obtain in a single lifetime. It's unusual that such a young man, even younger than him, is so rich in experience, as if he were in an unreachable place, the man closest to the position of God. It almost seems like that boy is Peter. In the year 2003, he made his vow. He would volunteer for the sake of humanity, maintaining his dignity and ethics and practicing medicine, not using his medical knowledge for malicious purposes. In the audience, some people couldn't believe it was him. Nahayen is a 13-year-old prodigy who had already entered medical school, but he wasn't truly happy. In 1994, he was bedridden in the pediatric ward. He was born sick, and they told him that he was born that way by God's choice. He just wanted to know the reason why he had been chosen to be born with a weak body. On television, he watched the molting process of arthropods, which allows them to grow and become stronger. Perhaps God wanted him to grow stronger like those creatures, unlike what humans do. Now he was motivated to become the person who would make that happen. In 2012, a patient with a gunshot wound was being treated in the emergency room. No one really wanted to treat him because that person was a murderer. Nahayen didn't care and did what needed to be done. For him, that shouldn't have been something worth mentioning. It was just a job, and he shouldn't get involved with ethics or morality. But it was his first time performing a surgery. His heart was racing, maybe because of that heavily built body in front of him, the strongest body he had ever seen up close. He wanted to know how he achieved that. Looking at all that vascularity and muscle volume, he wanted to know why he was so different from the others. His fascination was so great that he wanted to see the body from the inside. There were so many thoughts that he lost focus on the surgery. His hand hesitated, and he thought he should preserve and help humanity evolve. The patient's hand fell off the stretcher. He gave in to those intrusive thoughts and ended up dissecting that man. A nurse entered the room and was horrified by the scene. That made him take refuge in a small town in South America, but he did it for a reason, because there he had an abundant supply of bodies to conduct his research. He ended up noticing a phenomenon that validated his study. By killing strong people, he could confirm his own strength's progress. Then he began to strengthen those who were his weak points. A new existence, a new humanity. That was what he should have become, but he was obliterated by the young man in glasses. His body crashes onto the ground, bouncing multiple times. The entire place is destroyed after the fight. Dust and smoke mix in the air. Nathaniel is leaning against a pipe, his life almost at its end. His spine is shattered, his muscles torn, and he truly can't move. Kim tells him not to try moving as it would only add more nails to the lid of his coffin. Nathaniel wants him to tell him one last thing. For 30 years, all he's done is try to get stronger. But being defeated by Kim, he wants to know what that young man did that is so effective. Thinking for a moment, Kim isn't sure if he can explain it in a way he would understand. Kim acknowledges that he has a lot of tenacity, but the difference between them is that Kim dedicated himself to hard work for a short period of 65 years. This is an amount of time incompatible with the young man's age. Looking at him from a distance, he sees Peter's silhouette in him. Even being a doctor, there are many things he cannot comprehend. But he's happy to have met him before dying. Finishing his words, whatever life was left in that body was exhausted. Thus ended the conflict at the hospital. Nathaniel and his Cariokas, none of them remained alive. All information about the Glory Assassins was erased. Life returned to its natural course. In the car, the twins want to hear something from their professor. To them, it was already time to become rank C. Being categorical, the professor says they should be less arrogant. They say they were just acting. Then they start to tell him how his fight against the Brazilian assassins went. They wanted Yuna to recount how it was, but she seems quite distracted. On the other side of the seat, Kim looks at her. Things ended well, and she should be at least a little happy. But with her brother bedridden, she doesn't feel relieved. That promise Nathaniel made that could save her brother made her think too much. A single dose would cure him, even though it was very expensive. Kim knows she's worried about her brother and asks her if that's the case. However, she says she couldn't eat at the school cafeteria, and that's what she's thinking about. Since the serum was destroyed, nothing makes much sense now. Even so, Kim believes that being who she is, she'll find another way to help her brother. Though still a bit skeptical, she thanked him for his words. Finally, the van arrives at its destination. Opening the door, the young man says that Korea's scent is the best there is. The professor tells them to cut the chatter and go to sleep, so they won't be late for school the next day. Kim notices something left behind in the van. He asks Yumin if she's not going to take it, but she says it's not hers. Kim says Yujin might like it, and she wants to know how he knows her brother's name. Opening the package, she wants to know what that is on her lap. Her eyes can hardly believe it. Yuna is immediately moved by the gift. There was the serum Nathaniel had promised her. Kim had taken the suitcase from the hospital. Apparently, Nathaniel hadn't destroyed the serum. Yuna cries, grateful for her friend's gesture. She clings to the suitcase, which is her brother's hope. In the hospital, things are no longer dangerous. Two men observe the destruction. No one can say what happened there, and they can't believe in results either. The level of destruction is so extreme that it's hard to accept it was caused by human hands. The hospital is completely vandalized in some areas. They even wonder if it was really Peter who did that. One man repeats his question, which is confirmed by the other. There is footage of him introducing himself to the camera. Besides that, there are no witnesses who saw him. It's as if they had encountered a ghost. The man tries to retract his words, and some hooded figures ask if he really said that. He tries hard to retract his statement, but his effort is in vain. Thus, he collapses in fear on the hospital floor. Suddenly, several cuts are made on his body. Putting away his sword, the assassin asks if Peter is truly a ghost. That word should not be said in his presence, and he wants to know if he stirred up anger in the other for killing the boss's subordinate. But this man, in turn, felt nothing. He's already used to it. It's unfortunate that Nathaniel died before receiving the disciple's new training. On the other hand, Peter deserves something. A session of merciless beating that is the ghost of the sword. A bald man asks them to pay attention to what he's about to say. From now on, they are volunteers. The siblings are happy because they already wanted to go on a mission. Kim and Yuna still can't get used to the way these siblings act. It's a comedic relief full of secondhand embarrassment. He doesn't know why this mission was assigned to them, but he hopes they'll do a good job. At a port, a few small boats are docked. The siblings want to know what that is because they still don't understand the nature of the mission. This wasn't the kind of volunteering they were expecting to do. The truth is that real volunteering is also part of the job. The siblings make a scene on the ground saying they want to volunteer for glory and not for this situation. Soon, a beautiful woman appears, asking if they are the volunteers for the day. She is Yejin, the student's teacher. The siblings glance briefly at her. That was enough. Now they're working extremely motivated. Watching them, Yuna says that their behavior is untreatable, and Kim agrees with her. What she doesn't understand is why they were sent to a place so far from their school, a place 500 kilometers away from the capital. The professor told him that he doesn't know the reason either, but that they should remain discreet and not reveal themselves. So they proceed discreetly. Walking around the area, Kim reflects on the reason that might have brought them there. Looking at him, Yuna wants to know why Kim is feeling down. Resting in the shade after working, they talk with the teacher, asking if she's a student. The woman understood that it was a compliment meant to say she looks young, but they ask her not to say such things, and turn it back on her, saying they are just students while she is already a teacher. Yuna didn't like that, thinking they were being insolent. Knowing that the volunteers have arrived, the janitor introduces himself to them. That's the only school in the area, and he makes a dad joke. But the young ones couldn't find it funny. The place is very well taken care of, and Yuna wants to know what they can do to help. Then the janitor tells them to follow him because he'll guide them around the place. Yuna is suspicious. She doesn't believe they were brought there just for this. Two mobsters start extorting them, saying that they live in peace there because of them. But they don't have money to keep paying this kind of tribute, and the mobsters don't care about that. Instead of money, they offer something else, which seems to please them. There are several potatoes which are grown and harvested there. Suddenly, they throw the potatoes at the janitor and say they're still going easy on them. They say they're businessmen and don't like it when rules are broken like that. Yuna tells Kim not to get involved, but he wasn't planning on doing anything. The teacher says they have no money and that the school survives on donations. Then a mobster approaches her and says there's another way to pay. She could get money in other ways, and with her looks, she'd make a lot of money. Suddenly, a hand appears between them, saying that a man's hand doesn't exist to hit women. It's meant to protect, and for that reason, he can't forgive him. The mobster tries to say he didn't do anything. Before he could say anything else, the mobster reacted. He said his hand exists to hit clowns like him, and the teacher begs them not to fight. Sitting down after being hit, he says a mosquito is still flying around him. It even makes him scratch. A mobster says he's bleeding a lot, and the young man says they shouldn't focus on the small things. A brief beating session ensues. Now the two brothers are bedridden at the school. Taking care of them, the teacher asks if they're okay and apologizes. They tell her not to worry about them, but rather about the fists that hit their faces. The janitor said they were unlucky, and that those idle mobsters go around charging others. But thanks to the volunteers, the school was a little better. He asked them to rest, and they talk tomorrow. Kim asked if the captain is okay because he's recovered a lot. Then he remembered other situations. Intimidation they have faced before. The conflict inside the church with the assassins. Kim said that a strong person holds back when needed and that today they were pretty nice. He tries to say something more, but Kim tells him to keep resting. In that place far from the capital, the sky is filled with stars. Yuna is sitting on the swing alone. It seems she's reflecting on the past few days. Many things have happened to her recently. She remembered the bag Kim left for her in the car. Inside it was a different briefcase. Inside it, the serum that would be able to cure her brother. Crying with emotion, she wants to know how Kim was able to do that. That suitcase could change her brother's life. She should have thanked him when she could, but now she doesn't know how to do that. Kim asks if she's thinking about her brother after having seen the children today, and Yuna is greatly startled. He asks if she saw a ghost, but he always shows up in unexpected ways. With him there beside her, she wonders if she should bring up the topic. Calling him, he turns his attention to her, but the words don't come out of her mouth. She tries to explain to him what she wants to say, and Kim says it's a thank you, to her surprise. Looking at the sky, he also remembers a few things. She had told him to go to the clock, but the one in the garden. She had been adamant about that. He also remembers her cry in the hospital lobby. At that moment, she must have been really scared, yet she was able to protect him. Her bravery at that moment was truly incredible. She says it was nothing, but Kim says he's very grateful. Yuna is curious about something she wants to ask. She wants to know if Kim has any relationship with Peter or something similar. She's seen many strong people, but Kim had defeated Nathaniel. It doesn't make sense for him to be a rank D. Sighing, Kim says that when the time comes, he will tell her everything. She becomes downcast after hearing those words. She really hoped to hear the truth right away. Now she's anxious, as she's very curious. Kim insists on knowing what's wrong, and Yuna says she had already thanked him. Faced with his persistence, she lets out a loud shout, saying she's grateful. After that, he asked her to calm down a little more. She leaves thinking he did that on purpose, and that she should be careful around him. That's why she never knew how to properly apologize to men. Kim is happy that the Dako brothers and Yuna are progressing. Since things are being resolved, he should be on his way too. Inside the school, the light from the lamps passes through the window. Kim walks down the corridor, heading to his dormitory. The light from one room catches his attention. He wonders if there's a way he can help. The guard said he should go to sleep, as staying awake will only make him weak and age faster. He cracks a joke about losing weight, and the guard laughs too much. The joke wasn't that good, and Kim doesn't react to it. Since he couldn't help, he said he would leave, advising the guard to rest as well. Before he left the room, he said the boy is clumsy. He smelled blood for decades in his life, and the boy wouldn't be able to hide that scent from him with that behavior. His scent of blood is very strong. Kim could only go there as a volunteer, and he did so with a goal in mind. His objective in going to that school is to find the disciple Simon, the one who handles a sword better than anyone on the planet, the best swordsman of glory, the saint of the spinning blade. It seems he did his research properly, and if so, he must also know that he won't be alive for much longer. A single strike is enough to create a small opening. That is the opportunity given to his opponent to strike back. But it wasn't easy with that man. It seems like he's reading his mind. He can't find any openings. No matter the strength of the weapon, a bullet can be avoided, but there's no way to avoid a sword. They are simply deadly within their range. In a short time, he cornered him and blocked his movements. Kim wants to know if the one before him is truly the best swordsman in the world, or if it's just a rumor. Simon says that only 2 people have seen 10 of his strikes. The boy should be happy, since he is one of those people. He doesn't know how it is for other beings, but humans are made up of habits. Walking, talking, scent, even people's breathing is different. He wasn't sure before because it couldn't be true, as it was impossible. But during the fight, he became certain. Then he planted his sword into the ground before him, and he, the disciple Simon. The night sky did not expect this. The samurai is bowing and salutes the disciple Peter, who is in front of him. He said he missed his big brother. Perplexed, he asked if he had reincarnated, to which Peter says in a way yes. He's relieved because he thought he had died, but even Peter doesn't believe it. Simon wants to visit the place where he's hiding, but that's not possible yet. He said that now he seems cool and acts cool, something he didn't do before. Either way, he is grateful, because the title of the Saint of the Spinning Sword suits him well. Peter says he almost died, but Simon, knowing it was him, thought it was impossible. He said that Peter is very skilled, considering that for the past few years all he has handled is a broom, and holding a sword felt a little strange. And all of this only happened thanks to Peter, who taught him how to use a sword. He wants to know why he went to that part of the country. Peter asks if he's heard the news about what happened at the hospital and with Nathaniel, and indeed he heard about the chaos. He could hardly believe that it was Peter who did it, and was wondering who was responsible for that. Now he wants to know why Peter did all of that. Without beating around the bush, Peter says he plans to take down Glory. Simon says that even for him, it's too dangerous. Glory is not the same organization anymore, so he hopes to join him in this task, but Peter tells him he has to stay there and clean the school. Simon wants to go with him, but Peter asks if he really wants to throw away all the time he spent there hiding. The samurai says he still dreams about that fateful night. If it weren't for Peter, who stopped him, he certainly wouldn't be alive today. Just like that child wouldn't have reached the highest step, even if it cost him his head, he would have done it gladly. And he asks if Peter doesn't agree with him. 60 years ago, the Honor Orphanage was established by Father Gabriel. Among the children who grew up there, 12 were selected, with Peter being one of them. Every day was a battle for survival. After being treated like animals and going through the worst training, the 12 who survived were promoted and became the nation's secret agents, the 12 disciples. Before anyone knew it, they made great changes in the world. One day, something happened. A young boy appeared at the orphanage, and the priest decided to adopt him. As time passed, that child began to covet the crown. And in the end, he took the crown for himself, arousing Simon's fury. It was on that night that Peter stalked him. It wasn't the right moment for him or for anyone to do that. In his hands, Glory turned into an organization of assassins stained with blood and corruption. And Peter, who was powerless back then, obtained the greatest weapon of all, his youth. So if he wanted Simon not to get involved and just watch, for everything would be destroyed. The person in charge of doing that would be him, Peter. Morning finally arrives at the school. The siblings want to know what happened. They had done all the hard work, yet the children are idolizing Kim. The teacher thought things would get chaotic, but the mobsters didn't return, and the brothers said they won't come back. Shaking hands, the man asks them if they need to go further than that. The mobsters murmur that they won't mess up again and are warned not to return to the school or approach the teacher, because if they do, they'll witness the wrath of an S-rank assassin. But the siblings say it wasn't a big deal, and only they will remember it. With the volunteering finished, it was time for them to return to the capital. The teacher thanks them for giving the children good memories. The janitor makes a really bad dad joke and Yuna had to be restrained. Before leaving, they call out to the teacher. They affirm that they will return every year and she's happy, but thinks it's because of the volunteering not to see her. Before Kid leaves, the janitor calls for him. He said that if needed, he has the disciple Simon at his disposal. If necessary, he'll come to his aid immediately. Peter thanks him and hopes he stays safe and well in that place. Before the day ends, the rain starts falling from the sky. Soon, it becomes more intense, turning into a storm. The waves begin to rise and become much stronger. Lightning descends from the sky, shaking the walls of the school. Meanwhile, the janitor calmly reads his newspaper. That was quite unusual in his life. He's been receiving things that made him very happy lately. Standing up, he didn't expect to receive visitors. They don't seem to be volunteers, and he wants to know what they want by visiting someone who lives in isolation. The woman identifies him and says that's where he's been hiding. One of Father Gabriel's sons, the Saint of the Spinning Sword, the disciple Simon, the best swordsman in Korea. Simon knows they are from Glory, both the woman and the man accompanying her. From what he's heard, she seems to be the most powerful swordswoman in Japan, the Sword Phantom. The man is happy that Simon knows who he is. He doesn't know the reason for their visit, but if it's to steal a title he holds, he's not interested in that. The woman said she only came there to earn a lot of money and nothing more. Simon says they seem to have come from far away, but they won't get that money. Moreover, they are wrong about one thing. It was very presumptuous of them to say that the Saint of the Sword is the strongest in Korea. Seeing his fighting spirit, the man says it was worth coming all the way there. Simon tells them not to worry because he treats all his guests well. Now it was time for them to start fighting. The woman reacts immediately to Simon's movement. They are going to fight to the death. The rain continues falling heavily. A beam of light can be seen in the window of the janitor's room. The clash between them is extremely fierce. Their swords collide violently. Simon is thrown back by the impact but manages to stay firm on the ground. The woman is equally skilled. She was eager to meet Simon because of his reputation, but expected more from him and thinks it's due to his age. Simon has a cut on one of his arms. Indeed, he hasn't been training and is a bit rusty. If it were his past self, she would no longer be alive. Hearing this, she lets out a sadistic smile. She says Simon shouldn't think so highly of himself. She is good, but what concerns him is the guy behind her. He needs to move to a more open space to fight them both. Seeing her approach, he moved as well. Once again, the swords clash, producing light with their sparks. Simon says the school is public property and that he's going to report her for what she's done there. But she says she doesn't care because there will be no witnesses to that, and that Simon will soon cease to live. To escape the strike, he jumped out the window of his room. This irritated her because she thinks Simon is running away from them. Since it's raining heavily outside, the man wants to know if everything is fine, and the ghost of the sword says there are no problems. The rain keeps pouring down. Simon runs through the nearby forest with agility, sharpening the sword to cut things. This is the essence behind the sword. But her essence is different. That's a saw made to cut human flesh. Even if it hasn't cut him many times, the saw's teeth are wide and cut deeply. Not to mention, they definitely give off a bad feeling. There's definitely something they're hiding from him. The chase continues through the forest. Simon is now at a point that prevents his escape. He patiently looks at his pursuers. The woman says he's more romantic than she imagined because there he could try to die with a cooler aesthetic. Simon wants to know if she's interested in finding out why they call him the Saint of the Spinning Sword, but she doesn't want to know as she's a busy person. But the man behind her showed interest. He said Simon had become dangerous now. Indeed, practical knowledge is much better than theory. He is the Saint of the Spinning Sword. Focused, he can feel the air, the waves of the sea, even the rain, and he is capable of cutting all those things. All thanks to his sword technique. The man tries to tell the woman to dodge, but she takes a moment to understand. The cut had been made at the height of her neck. Didn't even give her time to react. The trajectory of his sword continues endlessly. An incredible technique refined over decades of training. The technique that made every swordsman tremble in fear. Simon is in his divine state. The woman can only scream, feeling the pain of the cuts on her body. It had been a while since he had so much fun, so he called the next one. It was time for the big guy to do something too. He says the technique is excellent. If Simon hadn't stopped training, it would have been formidable. But now it's too late. Simon doesn't understand as they already lost. Then he encounters a strange sensation. He looks slowly at his abdomen. There was a cut there, and he didn't even realize when it happened. There's no way he was wounded because he didn't see anything happen. The man asks if Simon really thought he had won. That's too funny. Hearing the voice, Simon is certain he had cut the woman. He even thought he might have been possessed by a ghost or something like that. It's impossible that this really happened. Maybe he was just hallucinating there. But the pain he feels is real. Searching his memories, he remembered when the woman used a perfume. Maybe that was the hallucinogen used. If that's the case, he says it's pathetic, and he's prepared for it. His preparation is complete. If he can't see a ghost, he just needs to close his eyes. He had repeated that technique thousands of times. For someone at his level, vision is irrelevant. In front of his sword, he senses the presence of his attacker. Then he approaches him with his sword. Seeing it once more, it's clear that his skills are terrifying. The infamous disciple Simon. To think that he ended up like this. Simon swings his sword aimlessly, completely disoriented. The woman smiles at the scene because he can't even see her. Now she will show him why she's called the Phantom. As her name suggests, she's a phantom who carries a sword. In the capital, the day dawns with a clear sky. One of the siblings has a question for his friends. Yuna wants to know what happened, and he asks if love has always been this painful. He sent messages to the teacher but never got a response, and Yuna said he doesn't deserve one because he doesn't know how to communicate. However, she used to reply, and he showed the old part of their conversation. She sent him a picture yesterday, and since then, she hasn't responded. He asks Yuna what they should do in a situation like that, but quickly changes the subject, saying she's not a girl. Listening to their conversation, Kim became very thoughtful. They asked for Kim's help because Yuna is oppressing them. He had called Juwon and asked to meet her. It's very cold, and they met on a slope near the sea. Kim is looking for pirates in that area. The girl notices what's going on because even her dog sense something different. She wants to know what happened as Peter isn't responding, if Simon had gone back with him that day, or even if he had stayed with him. If a few things had been different, he would still be alive. Thinking about the possibilities, Peter is genuinely angry. Far away, they are being observed by someone. The informant says the target received the gift, and his boss wants to know if it's really Peter there. He says there's an older man there and that he's not alone. There's a woman with a dog and a younger guy who's not there anymore. While talking to his boss, Kim snatches the phone from the observer's hand. This startled him because Kim got to his position too quickly, and he couldn't do anything. On the phone, Kim asks if the person is the new Simon of Glory. The woman wants to know if it's Peter. On the other side, he asks if she's the one who calls herself the Phantom. He says he doesn't know why she's acting so confidently, but hopes she stays safe, if she isn't already. Meanwhile, he crushes her henchman's hands, who screams uncontrollably. She had signed her own death sentence. She would die painfully at the hands of a real phantom. A yacht sails across the sea. Someone asks if the man is okay, but he knows what kind of place he's heading to. It's her home, a genuinely dangerous place. An invisible vessel, everything about its crew. No one knows a thing. It's known as the Ghost Cruise. Whoever kidnapped Simon is inside. How they got the ship and how they maintain it is a mystery, but Peter knows who they are associated with. If Korea has glory, Japan has them. An ancient organization of assassins, not to mention the Oriental Yakuza, famous in popular imagination for having inserted the story of the sword Phantom into the case of the lost Yamagumi. On the day of the incident, they were celebrating the leader's 60th anniversary. That day, 2,000 people lost their lives at the hands of just two individuals. An event that became well known, the incident doesn't do it justice. It's more like a massacre. But that's because it was 2 against 2,000. In the place where such a battle unfolded, there wasn't a single body left. A reward was placed on them by the Japanese police, but as their name suggests, they'd vanished like ghosts. After years, they reappear, and now she is the new Simon of Glory. She says that if he knows all this, he shouldn't go in there because he might have a futile and insignificant death. And she's worried if everything will be okay, since he doesn't have any support. But Peter only cares about the number of people he'll have to face. No matter how many he has to kill, there won't be any survivors. He'll make sure they regret spilling his brother's blood. And he has helpers there as well, but that's exactly what the woman was talking about. The siblings didn't like their clothes and want to be bodyguards too. That's why Kim told them not to come along with him, as he's not joking. This is serious. But they say he just wants to monopolize the fun. Kim says it again. They could end up dying there, but they don't care. Death for assassins is the final achievement. On the yacht, a man asks if he liked the vessel. It's Choi Eun-chang, president of Daeha, a corporation that manufactures weapons. Kim tells the president that it's cold outside and that he should come in quickly. Then he asks why he's so nervous, to which the man replies that he should be. There are drugs and smuggled weapons on board, missing art pieces, and even trafficked people. This ship has things that an ordinary person can only imagine existing. Even though he's rich and powerful, he only boards with the permission of that person, and Kim says he's indebted to him once again. But it's fine. He owes him nothing. Finally, they can see the ghost vessel more closely. Peter can't wait to find out who this person is, what kind of person they are, to know exactly what they're like so he can bring judgment to that soul. Already on board, someone asks to call the boss over there. The man had struck the woman in the head with an ashtray because she didn't understand a word he said. The woman tells him not to call the woman by that name, and if he keeps calling for her, she'll get angry. It's not a boss, but a lady. She is Simon, the ghost of the sword. Her appearance doesn't seem dangerous. The same could be said of the man who always accompanies her. While the woman is escorted by the man, Simon invites the Hafed to talk in her room, but he says she must have forgotten who he is. One word from him could have her thrown off the ship. He's the CEO of a large company. Since he doesn't want to go to the room, they can do it right there. Even though he's already drunk, she'll make him even more intoxicated. Suddenly, he feels something is off. His hands are trembling violently. His body is sweating cold, and he's sure something is wrong. Within seconds, he's already collapsing to the floor. Simon begins to lament what happened. What he likes is his business, but he was doing really well squeezing his neck. With him writhing on the ground, she orders her henchman to throw his body into the ocean. They immediately obey, removing the man who is still convulsing. She wants to know if her companion thinks Peter will come, since this is the first auction since that phone call. After receiving her gift, he will definitely appear, and he wants to know what the ghost would do if Peter were on the ship. She coldly says she would find him, kill him, and take her money, and she can't wait for it to happen. The brothers look on in amazement because they don't know what that is. That is an enormous and wonderful club, not to mention the massive pool on the ship. It's simply an incredibly luxurious hotel. The wealthy from all over the world are there, people who must wipe their butts with money. Then he looks at Jay and asks if he's ready. Without hesitation, he tells his brother that he's been ready since birth. There must be no dirt in front of the important people, and they dedicate themselves to cleaning the ship's floor. A big shot calls for them, and the brothers immediately offer their services. He gave them a bunch of money because they were working hard cleaning the floor. It was way too much money. They didn't expect such a generous tip. They received the equivalent of $1,000,000. All that just for cleaning the floor. They're already thinking they'll get rich. If that's the case, they won't need to be assassins. In the middle of the hall, a man asks for everyone's attention and thanks them for being there. For the auction that's about to start, they have a special product for them. Simon's first impression was written on a piece of paper, a woman with a sword and a man who looks like a bear. Peter, looking at her, knows that this woman is the new Simon of Glory. The first item to be auctioned is Photorok. She urges people to imagine what that might be. It's capable of killing thousands of people in just a few minutes, a biochemical weapon. Peter, observing her, can't believe she was a match for the Saint of the Sword. Among the audience, one of them knows that shouldn't exist because it was destroyed by the Soviet Union for being too dangerous. It's quieter than a bullet and more lethal than a bomb. An old man wants to know where they managed to get it. Victor Igora, one of the largest Russian arms smugglers, claims the item was stolen from him. He orders his men to grab the woman and bring her to him, but her henchman says they can't cross that line. Even so, they push past him, threatening him with death. Approaching her, they told her that if she obediently went with them, she wouldn't get hurt, while she asked them to slow down. If they understood what that meant, she said it would take a while for them to feel it. Soon, they were both on the ground, writhing in pain and agony. Peter was incredulous and wondered if he had really seen that. The audience didn't understand why they ended up like that out of nowhere. Peter also watched closely what was happening to the men. Their faces were literally melting. The guy on the stairs had touched their faces. That must have been enough contact. Even with that unexpected turn, the event continued. The Phantom apologized for what just happened and resumed the auction. That item would indeed be auctioned the following day with a starting bid of $200 million. In fact, she didn't want to say this tonight, but she'll say it for all of them. There is one more special item to be auctioned, an item none of them would imagine to be there. The curious attendees wanted to know what it could be, but she asked them to quiet down a bit. All special items would be shown the following day. This left the buyers very interested, as there must be several intriguing items there. The only thing Peter can think about is where Simon might be on that ship. On stage, they watch as people leave. He wants to know if Peter was among those people, but the Phantom says they'll find out the next day. The company's president is hungry, perhaps just because he was nervous earlier, so he suggested they go to where dinner is being served. He also advised being very careful, especially around that woman. No matter who you are, you have to listen to what she says on this ship. Of all the people he knows, she's the most unstable person he's ever seen. Just as he was about to mention the man accompanying her, someone calls President Choi. It's the woman, saying it's always difficult to meet with him, and that he didn't come when he was invited, but it seems Photorok was enticing. Since they hadn't seen each other for a while, she invited him to dine with her. He tries to say that he wanted to avoid dinner that night because the drink was too strong. Approaching him, the woman told him to relax. This made him even more apprehensive. That woman is dangerous. Then his bodyguard's hand pushed her back. Kim said they should have dinner another day because the president isn't feeling well today. And if she insisted on having company, he could go with her. Kim looked at her with a coldness that only Peter could have. In front of him, the Phantom seemed frustrated. She observed quietly while Kim escorted the president through the corridor to his suite. The Phantom didn't expect a bastard with a young face to do that. That made her consider showing him something, and she told him to wait. He's right. She does want company for dinner, and she invited him on a date. When he comes, she suggested he leave his belt in the room, because her dinner will take quite some time. Getting close to her, he noticed that there was something strange about the scent she was giving off. That fragrance wasn't normal. Then she said that men are all the same and can't control themselves when they're near her. After saying that, she sensually ran her hand over Kim's lips. Then she asked if he didn't agree with her, but some people started calling for her now. It's the brothers, saying they are the new staff in charge of cleaning and will clean anything she asks them to. While Kim tries to regain his composure, the two argue for her attention. He's still deep in thought after getting close to her. Trying to avoid that distraction, she turned her attention back to Kim and said that he's a lucky guy after all. After that, she walked away, leaving the area. Kim doesn't know what just happened because he almost lost his senses. It happened too quickly. Looking at the brothers, he starts to think. Stating that they're part of the cleaning crew, he seems to have put the pieces together about what's going on. The brothers are engaged in cleaning, hoping to receive hefty tips. The eunuch Spectre asks them to wash her feet, to which they promise they'll make them shine. In her suite, the Phantom is taking a bath while the young man stands guard. She asks if he's not curious to know how hot it will be, but he doesn't seem to understand what she's implying. Then she says she's heard about the event where 100 Brazilian assassins were killed, and even the disciple Nathaniel is no longer alive. That's Peter's ability. a 70-year-old man at death's door, while his opponent was a disciple in his prime. Given that, she has her doubts if it was really him, and the young man says that getting into the ship isn't as easy as entering a hospital. The chance of him getting in there without being noticed is non-existent. Maybe someone is impersonating him, so the question is their motives and why they want to destroy the organization. And to get close to them, she has a very effective method. This made the young man thoughtful. The ghost wants to know if that person is bothering him somehow. It's amusing because she doesn't even know if it's a man or a woman, but she wants to know why it bothers him and if he's jealous of her. Sighing deeply, he chooses his words and says he's not jealous of her. The ship continues on its unknown route lively inside. Kim is dressed as a waiter, pushing a cart. At no moment does he forget his focus. He remembered a conversation he had with Simon, who said he was relieved. The person closest to the concept of family he has is Peter, and now he would be the first of them to die, the first to have a funeral portrait. Because of this, Simon asked Peter not to get hurt, because he's worried about the one closest to him. Then Peter tells his friend that he will not die. He will fulfill what he promised him and recommended that Simon drink less and stay healthy. If it's that promise, he didn't expect him to still remember it, but Peter has a good memory. Indeed, there's no fooling him. Simon was his brother, his family, and for him, he would gladly kill as many as necessary. All of this just to have him back. Peter is definitely determined to do so. The auction is taking place now in the main hall, and everyone is focused on it. During this time, he needs to find any clue that leads him to Simon, and he walks through the corridors looking for details. Two men ask who he is, and Kim says he's with room service. Then he continued his route through the ship. It seems he didn't know about this, but they don't have any Asians working on the ship right now. They decide to capture him and take him to the madam, and Kim says that's interesting. Maybe because they are pirates, but everything ended too quickly. In the kitchen, looking for his friend, he left another large trail of bodies. The same happened in the ship's engine room. Wherever he passed, he left bodies, but he didn't find any clues about Simon. There was only one place left to search. That place is the only one he hasn't inspected yet. The auction continues, and soon another piece will be presented. An 18th century Czech painting, a unique and genuine piece that captivated the audience. The starting bid for the painting was $1 million. It didn't take long for its value to rise steeply. Reaching $1,300,000, the painting is apparently sold. With no further bids, the painting was sold. Now she's going to auction something everyone there desires. The last item of this auction day, her precious baby. The crown jewel of the day, something more valuable than any item presented so far. It can't even be compared to these things. An item more cherished, an art and rarer than biological weapons. And soon, they will see what it is. An item prepared for a special person among them, who will certainly recognize its value the moment they see it. The precious item of the day, the only one of its kind in the world. The former disciple, Simon the Sing of the Sword. In the past, he was called the strongest swordsman, known as the Sing of the Spinning Sword. People think that maybe he's just a corpse now, and she hopes to have provoked Peter enough, and wants to know if that makes his blood boil with rage, because she can only imagine that he must be furious, and will soon reveal himself to her. Because if he doesn't, she will simply hunt him down within the ship. There are only two types of expressions when people look at Simon that way. Either they are completely in shock at what they're seeing, or they have a peculiar look. Even a young man who accompanies her is scanning the crowd, because among those faces there must be one that stands out. One that will be easy to spot because it stands out. The ghost found what she was looking for, the face of someone filled with hatred. With that, the ghost achieved what she wanted. The young man asks if she found him, and indeed she did, but there's something strange. After finding him, she lost sight of him. However, she's certain he's there among them. In the middle of the people, she saw his expression of hatred. Not only that, but she sensed a murderous aura. She even thought she might be wrong about it, but that shouldn't be the case. From now on, it doesn't matter anymore. She wants to see if he's capable of making it through all this. The presentation is over, and the auction for Simon's dying body is about to begin. The starting bid is $10 million, and if Peter doesn't buy him, Simon will die right there. It's a delicate choice, and the lives of both of them are at stake. Peter knows that his friend has become bait to lure him out. Besides not having the money for the bid, if he participates in this, he'll draw too much attention. Not to mention that there are too many spectators for him to try to take Simon by force. The situation is utterly detestable. Peter doesn't know what he should do to save his friend's life. The Phantom says that a disciple's life used to be worth more than a weapon of mass destruction, and now nobody wants him. And for him, it's especially worse because he was abandoned by his own. Once more, she turns to the audience, asking if no one wants him. She even asked if they didn't want him because he was defective, missing an arm. If no one buys him, she'll throw him away. She'll count to 5 and then end his life right there. The countdown begins. Every second that passes feels like an eternity. Peter coldly thinks about what he should do. It seems there's no more hope for Simon. There's only 1 second left to prevent his death. In the middle of the crowd, someone places a bid of $20 million. It wasn't Peter who made this bid. It was the person who is supposedly his boss, the president of the Daha Group. The offer is serious, and he wishes to buy the disciple for that amount. Moreover, he will pay the amount in cash. This ended up complicating the Phantom's plans because she didn't expect this interference. Not to mention that he is very close to Glory's leader due to their weapons dealings. Seeing this, she seems to understand the situation. She asks if anyone else wants to place a bid, and Peter notices his boss's trembling hand. The Phantom did not like what happened. In the absence of other bids, he had won. She wants to know if he's hiding something from her now. Simon is bedridden and receiving care. He asks if this is the person Peter was looking for. Indeed, it is him, and Peter is worried about the president's safety, but he says he's always been involved with Glory. If it weren't that way, they couldn't have avoided the trap. Buying him made them suspects, and not buying would have meant Simon's death. It remains to be seen if that was what she intended from the start. With everything that happened, staying on the ship is dangerous, and leaving it will be risky. But Peter says he has a way to get out safely. He had already prepared something for a situation like this. Peter has an ace up his sleeve. Walking through the ship, he found who he was looking for. The brothers, wearing expensive clothes, want to know what their friend needs now, and he would like to know what happened to them over the past few days. They say Kim needs to make money, and if he stuck with them, he'd be rich. Kim asked if they weren't there to become legends like Peter. Hearing that, they realized they had a greater focus. And indeed, they got distracted because they made a lot of money from tips. Remembering the dreams they have, they ask Kim what he needs now. The situation is dangerous. The only ones who can solve it are them, who have cleaned the ship from top to bottom. He wants to know how much they cleaned it, and they say they cleaned the feet of everyone who is important. That's good, and it will become the fruit of their hard work. From now on, the two are assigned to carry out a special A-rank mission. Kim is in the room where Simon is. He looks at his friend, who seems feverish. This is not the situation in which he wanted to meet him. He looks at Simon, and they're in another place. It felt good to wear a uniform and bring a meal prepared by their mothers. And it was great to be able to go to school with that group. Thoughts like these are ridiculous, says Peter. They can't go to school, and Simon said it would be hard to hold a pen with bloodstained hands. Maybe he's feeling melancholic because it's autumn, and Peter tells him to make one, which Simon doesn't understand. A school built by them where the poor and orphans could be welcomed. They would build the first exclusive school for people like that. He should go to that school and study there. As for Peter, he'll cover all the operational costs and wants to know what Simon thinks. His eyes lit up before giving his response, but he ended by saying that he hated the idea. Peter wants to know what he didn't like about it. Simon said that he would buy his own books. He remembers the conversation they had as he looks at his bedridden brother. All she wishes for now is that he wakes up. Simon had promised that they would go to school. Outside, the president listens to Peter's words to his brother. In another room, the ghost is absolutely furious. That bastard Choi ruined her entire plan, and she always hated him. Enraged, she throws some sculptures on the floor. She screams that he shouldn't have meddled in her plans. The young man tries to calm her down, saying she might get hurt, so the ghost suggests they simply kill him. Rip off his head and hang it somewhere for everyone on the ship to see. Like he is the head of the Daha group, and doing that without the Glory leader's permission would be risky. Then the ghost asks him who is the master there on the ship, and you shouldn't forget that on this ship, she is the law. She then orders her henchmen to eliminate Choi as well as Simon, who was bought by him, because she's sure that after that, Peter will reveal himself. There's a knock at the door. Choi doesn't know who it is, but Kim says he had ordered dinner, so it must be room service. Since he's the one who ordered it, he goes to the door to get the dinner. He praised the young man's initiative, and even though he didn't know what was ordered, he was excited to have dinner. When he returned, there was only tea. He sent the steak back because it was too cold. Now Choi is sure that the woman hates him for doing that to his food. Skipping a few meals wouldn't be a problem for him, but he thinks the young man should eat because of his age, but Kim says he's fine. Serving the tea, he is sure that he'd be back before it gets cold. Then he heads outside and enters another room in the same corridor. That particular room is quite messy, and the mess consists of the bodies of the ghost henchmen. Handling some seasonings, he says that 60 degrees is the perfect temperature for tea, but what they were served was at 75 degrees, which means they failed to be good hosts. One of the henchmen didn't understand anything, but said they were more than 20 and all armed, and that the bodyguard is armed with just 2 salt shakers. But Peter says they clearly understand nothing, and now he's going to show them just how terrifying those objects can be. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time.